Hello, bonjour. Merv Copenace Niisaachewan Niisaachewan Donji. My English name is Merv Copenace, and I don't have an Indian name. I was never given one from a family of 10. I was the only one that was in that group that was given an Indian name, but I'll explain later why I wasn't given that an Indian name, even though I had gone to some ceremonies. I'm from Niisaachewan, and I grew up at the point of Portage, which is Kunigam, right across from the residential school, St. Mary's residential school where I went to. My clan is Bijou, Sagutch. Well, I attended 6 years at St. Mary's residential school back in, I guess I was 7 years old. We went there at 64. I attended 3 years of residence and 3 years of day school. And one of the things that a lot of people ask me, why did you only attend 3 years? Because there was over 100 kids where I stayed on the boys' side. We were separated. There was a girls' side and a boys' side. I think we had about felt like about 100 boys, 120. Because in the dormitory, that's where you would find out, because it all had metal bunk beds, and every one of them was full. So I'm pretty sure there was over 120, and that's where I attended. So the reason why we were taken out of residence is because there was more kids coming in from the northern communities, and they wanted to make more room for the northern kids that are coming into the St. Mary's school. So what the St. Mary's Residential School decided to do is, because the school was based right inside Wareagle, also known as Portage, and they sent home all of the kids to attend as a day school rather than being residents, and to make room for other northern community kids who are coming in from as far as north and also up down west. Well, like I said, I went there for 64. I was there for 6 years, 3 years in residence and 3 years in day school. But the type of abuse that you dealt with on a daily basis didn't really change when you went to day school. Yeah, it still existed, and we weren't allowed to talk our language, even though that when we did go home during the day, we were able to talk to our parents. Well, I like to tell my girls 3 miles from where I walked from, but when they look at it, it's probably from here to the band office. If you look at the distance. I like to embellish how far I walk. It wasn't that far. I'd say maybe, probably a good 8 to 1,000 yards. No, I'm second generation. All my siblings went, as far as I can tell. My mom went. She was first generation. She ended up poor. My wife went to Presbyterian, which is in Round Lake, CJ School. And that's where she attended. So we're second generation, but all my siblings went, except for my youngest brother. He went to day school. For what I saw on the boys' side, there was over 120 boys, and coming from all different communities, Treaty 3, Treaty 9 mostly, and not so much as the western side of, let's say, down west, and we didn't see as much, but there was the odd one. But a lot of northern community kids came there, and I knew a lot of boys. Like the thing that we have, and it still exists today, like in your normal schools, that everybody kind of attaches to certain individuals, and the only thing that we ran into in that, which was very difficult, that they kind of formed gangs within the school system. So you had to be part of a group in order to be protected. But I knew a lot of the individuals that went there, and yeah, I still know them and who they are. Well, it was very pretty difficult to talk about St. Mary's School, but I still do anyway. I talk about it, and for me to talk about residential school, especially St. Mary's, it provided me healing the more I shared with other people, and a lot easier for me to accept it did happen, and there was a lot of physical and sexual abuse happening within the St. Mary's School, especially in the evening. Like, you know, like they had a different type of bedtime for certain kids, and like we had to be in bed by 6 o'clock in the evening, and the older boys in between, I think 8 o'clock, and the older boys from probably about after 9 for sure. So the hardest part, especially late in the evening, was what I remember anyway, is that the supervisor, who was a non-native guy that was probably hired through Kenora, he used to come around to make sure you were asleep. And if you got caught talking, of course you get a good whipping or a good slap in the back of the head. But if this individual tapped you on the head when it got darker after the boys got in to be put to bed, that if you got tapped on the head, then you would have to spend the night with the supervisors. And everybody knows what happened, and I was quite fortunate it never happened to me. So, but to this day I still have an issue with I guess somebody coming from behind and touching me, and I'll always try and sit with my back to the wall just to be on the safe side. Well, for me, I guess we kind of lost, because we had a good family. We lived off the land, hunters and gatherers, and my dad had his own business of pulp cutting, so he hired quite a bit of individuals to cut pulp. Back in the day, it was by hand saws and horses, and it was he knew how to look after the family. And we learned how to trap and hunt, and go to our trap line and do the 4 seasons of harvesting, and that's what I missed quite a bit, because when they were told that we had to attend, that connection separated the whole family in terms of how to care for each other and how to love. So when we went home during the summer, because we attended from the end of August right to the end of probably June, that connection, that closeness from our family changed. Like, we used to hug each other and kiss each other on the cheek, and that came to a halt, and we kind of lost our language and how to talk to each other. So I think that was the biggest part. No, it hasn't, because this is the first generation that has never attended residential school, so we were quite fortunate. But they still have to deal with a lot of issues with non-native society in terms of discrimination and racism and so on. But we educated our kids on our life experiences, and hopefully they become better adults. And it's a very difficult question to answer, because for me anyway, like today, but previously before, like I'm just like any other individual, Anishinaabe, that went through residential school and all the trauma. I abused alcohol. I never did go into drugs and things like that. I tried it once and it wasn't for me. So, but I mainly abused alcohol, and I think it really affected me and my family, because the majority of my siblings abused alcohol and all. So I'm gonna see 1, 2, 3, 4. and 5 have died through abusing alcohol tragically. So that, yeah, definitely, because I didn't get back into it probably till the late 90s when I worked for, back then it was called Ojibwe Tribal Family Services, probably in the late 80s, and I started to see a lot of these Aboriginal people practicing their culture. In fact, that when I walked into one of the ceremonies, which I never knew, is that is who's doing marijuana in this room. Meanwhile, it was sweetgrass, right? But we did learn. My father taught us culturally about respect, but he didn't really practice it. But he had all his sacred items that we used on a yearly basis when we feasted and we lost our siblings, and he would feast. He's in our I guess our siblings that have passed on, but we didn't really practice it. My mom lived by the Bible every day, and they got along really good in terms of working with both the I guess spirituality and the beliefs. Like I said, I talked about it quite a bit. I started working at the Lake Louis District Hospital probably in '95, and part of my job as manager of Aboriginal Services to educate the health professionals and the administration about the results of working with First Nations, and it helped me talk about residence quite a bit. Acknowledgement. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's happening slowly. I mean, it may not happen in my lifetime, but it is in the right direction. It was difficult, even though that we were a family. We didn't know who we were. We couldn't hug and talk about things because we were threatened that, not to talk about things that happened in residence at school. So the secrecy was there, and it carried on, nobody talked and openly. And because before we went there, we used to, every day, breakfast, lunch and supper, we used to gather around and have our meals together and talk freely about our feelings and things like that. And every evening, my mom would tell stories out of the Bible, what she read, and culturally, my dad would also tell us about the legends and how he grew up in, and so on. So that came into a halt once we went, and everything changed. I wouldn't really call it a community because what ended up happening is my mom and dad, my dad was from Buffalo Point, right across from War Road, right at the border, and my mom was from Sholik 39. And when they started taking those kids back, when they opened the residential schools, there was a lot of abuse of alcohol. There's a lot of violence. So what ended up happening was that my mom and dad took us out of that, from those communities, and put us, there happened to be some space that the St. Mary's School had owned. It was a barn, and it was no longer being used, so my mom and dad approached the school, I guess, of St. Mary's, whoever ran it, if we could take it over as a house, and that's where I grew up. And from there, we moved into town, and I grew up with a lot of non-native kids, and we were really good friends. It wasn't until we hit high school that I learned about racism and discrimination. Well, you need to talk about your feelings. It's really important to talk as many times and to people that are willing to listen. and it gets a lot easier and easier every time you talk about your experience at residential school, and it's also educational for other people that have never went there, especially non-native society. Well, yeah, part of my responsibilities at the hospital was to educate the health professionals, and I would have in-service sessions and tell them my whole experience of what had happened inside the school and how it looked like. And to this day, I can probably take you through in my mind of every room that was there, and a lot of prayers that we had to do, regardless if you were sick or not. I thought it was about time. For me, a lot of people were totally against it. He said that he wasn't sincere, but to me it was a sincere apology, and for me it was acknowledgement that it did happen. Like a lot of people said, especially non-native societies, said, well, it's for the betterment of First Nations and nothing really happened in there, but for him to apologize because of all the abuse and probably, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what he said, but acknowledgement was, yeah, it did happen now. Well, it's changed since I met my wife. Like she had said, we've been married for 39 years. And, we've had 4 girls. It's changed quite a bit, and the only thing that because I still speak the language Anishinaabe, but I'm not as fluent as I used to be. So it was very difficult to teach our daughters. My wife understands exactly when I speak Anishinaabe to her, but she can't speak it. I don't know, there's a blockage, whatever happened to her when she went in. But yeah, it's changed quite a bit for, like my wife said, we own our own home, and I worked at the hospital for 25 years, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have an Indian name, because when my mom was alive, I had asked her, how come I'm going without an Indian name? He says, we tried, they went to ceremonies, a couple of ceremonies here and there. And my dad was really into his culture to make sure you have your Indian name. And I remember my mom telling me that you weren't meant to have it. So what she said, you're meant to work with cultures. I didn't understand that. It wasn't until I worked at the hospital that I was able to understand what she meant, that I was supposed to work with the white people and the native people together. And trying to make them understand each other and their both beliefs and culture. I'm a testament that I survived. I survived the hardest time of my life, which I didn't understand why it happened. Now that I do. And there's a lot of things I could have shared with you with the stories that I have here, but I think I will just keep it to myself, and I'm glad this interview happened, and hopefully people will learn from our interviews that you can make changes in your life even though you think it's here hitting the bottom of the barrel, and you just need to have more confidence and talk more. I wish. Well, for my legacy, it isn't much. I would like to end racism if it'll never happen within my lifetime, and just teaching our daughters how to respect other people as well as themselves, and especially our community needs to start respecting other people. And I know one of the things that we have is our elders. I hope our elders stop selling our culture, our items. It's getting to a point that there's more non-native people that have their Indian names. I don't even have one. So, and yeah, it's just about respecting each other, and hopefully, and that's one of the toughest parts for a lot of individuals that haven't been able to learn to heal.